What is going on, everybody? As I'm sure most of you know by now, Phil Spencer recently did an interview with GameSpot. And during this interview, fanboyism was brought up. Now, when I first heard about this, the first thought that popped in my head was, okay, he probably just briefly talked about fanboyism. Probably said something along the lines of, look, some people are passionate about certain products, and, that's cool, but some don't take it too far. Just something along those lines. Just something like he doesn't want to talk about that specific issue and give a vague answer. That was my first thought. But, wow. To quote the great one, the people's champion, The Rock, Phil Spencer laid the smackdown on these fanboys' candy asses. I'm not even joking. I will link the article in the description. I highly recommend you check it out and also read the full interview. But holy shit, he went in. He went in on these fanboys. And I could not believe it. I could not believe a high figurehead in this gaming industry actually said what myself and a lot of other people in this community have said. Sometimes almost word for word. I could not believe it. Here, I'll give you some examples. I will give you some examples. Quote, I've said before, the only thing that I probably find a little distasteful in the discourse around games is the divisiveness, that people try to build between platforms. Wow, yes, that is exactly what the console fanboy war is. I can't say this word. Divisiveness in the community. That's pretty much what these wars cause. This was really good right here. Quote, it becomes more about what piece of plastic I own than what games I'm playing. It becomes more about somebody else failing than the things I love succeeding. I don't think that's a good place for our industry. Wow, I could not have said it better myself. Man, this was awesome. This was awesome. And I've been wanting somebody that's a high figurehead in the gaming industry to basically just say what needs to be said about these stupid fanboys. And Phil Spencer finally stepped up to the plate, and he did just that. He not only discussed the issue, he destroyed these fanboys. Now, this isn't going to stop the fanboy wars at all. It's not going to stop fanboys from continuing to just shove their fanboyism in our faces. It's not going to stop these circle-jerking podcasts that these fanboys love to have. None of that's going to stop. But it's good to know that we have people in this industry that see this fanboyism for what it is, and they're not going to let this fanboyism affect how they run their business. So it's really good to see. I'm glad Phil Spencer went in on these fanboys because it needed to be done. It needed to be done. Because I've done it and other people have done it, but we needed someone with actual clout to do it. Now, I'm pretty sure these Xbox fanboys in particular are going to damage control this and say things along the lines like, oh, no, he didn't really mean that, or he meant something else, or, oh, it was photoshopped. He never really said that. They're going to try and do some type of damage controlling because a lot of these guys have been hailing Phil Spencer as like this god. And it would make them look really bad for them to turn around and actually attempt to criticize Phil Spencer. It would make them look very bad. And even they know that. So I expect some minor damage controlling. But they're going to try and make it look like that this interview and what Phil Spencer said here never happened. So, Phil Spencer, thank you. Thank you for laying the smackdown on these people. It needed to be done, and I'm glad that somebody finally did it. Now, before I end this video, I just want to briefly talk about Phil Spencer. I remember watching past Microsoft E3s, like say 2009, 2010, and Microsoft had some pretty bad E3s then. And you had Don Matrick up there. Yeah, some of you remember Don Matrick in his spiffy corporate suit, looking all corporate, and you could just tell that he's just there because that's his position. He really doesn't want to be there. He probably really isn't that passionate and doesn't really care about gaming. And I would always see that. And then during those same E3s, they would go to Phil Spencer, who I believe his old position was that he was a community manager. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on his official title, but I believe he was some type of community manager. And while there is some corporatism there in Phil Spencer, I would watch him, and you could tell that he loves video games. He is a gamer. He's passionate about video games. And when Don Matrick got the boot in 2013, I was hoping that Phil Spencer would take that spot. Because I would always look at those past events and go, why isn't Phil Spencer in charge of the Xbox brand? Why is Don Matrick in charge? Phil Spencer needs to be in charge. And then Don Matrick got the boot, and then, thank God, Phil Spencer got that position. Now, change is not overnight, but we have seen some positive changes with the Xbox brand once Phil Spencer took over. Now, there are still some bumps in the road. There's still some hurdles to climb. But I do see a positive change in the Xbox brand because Phil Spencer is now in charge. So, I've always firmly believed that Phil Spencer should have this position. And I'm glad that the changes he's made in Xbox is showing that. But after this interview, it just makes my thought about that even more satisfying. That not only is he good for the position, he hates fanboyism as much as I and others do, and he's not afraid to tell it like it is. And you know what? I hope somebody from Sony now comes out and talks about this as well. I hope we see that. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised this happened, because usually these corporate people, they don't want to say something that might offend their consumer base. So you would think they wouldn't really discuss things like this, because whether we like it or not, Xbox fanboys are a consumer base for Xbox. So these Microsoft and Xbox people don't want to try to piss off these guys as well. So I'm honestly surprised this happened, but this is awesome. Thank you, Phil Spencer. Alright, I've rambled long enough. Let me know what you think about this. So, alright, until next time, have a good one.